Hello and welcome to the final round of Swiss here from Grand Prix Minneapolis. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. We have Luis Scott Vargas on the left, one of our coverage co-workers and a fan favorite, playing against Andrew Huska, both sitting at a very nice record of 12-2. But you're going to need to do a little bit better than that to make it into the top 8 here in Minneapolis. The winner of this match is going to be in our top 8. Luis Scott Vargas chasing pro points, looking to try to make platinum. He is in the Hall of Fame for the Magic Gathering Pro Tour, so he has invites to the Pro Tour either way, but getting platinum is a big, big deal, and he would love to do it.
And here he's got a rough road ahead of him. Andrew Huska is playing Jund, and this is a difficult matchup for the Minneapolis deck. The Jund deck has access to cards like Anger of the Gods that are just really strong against you.
Okay. Now, I want to correct you here as well. You said Minneapolis. But we know that Luis actually isn't on Minneapolis. He's on Birthing Pod. No Malira.
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
That was something that that Randy discovered a little bit earlier in the day when we had Luis in the feature match area, when he got a chance to talk to him and look at his deck list. And yeah, there's an interesting twist on Birthing Pod at play here. He does have an infinite combo of sorts, but it's not an instant game winner necessarily. It depends on what the matchup is. He's got the Archangel of Thune Spike Feeder combo, which we'll explain if that happens to come out on camera. But in the meantime, Luis just tends to go with value. He is wont to do that. Now, Andrew's hand is pretty nice here. He's got Scavenging Ooze, Double Bolt. He's got Anger of the Gods. He's also got a Tarmogoyf and 2 lands. Scavenging Ooze hits the bin, though. And this is a main deck Thoughtseize from Luis Scott Vargas.
Yeah.
Something we don't normally see.
Here.
I think he's actually got 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's not something you normally see at a Birthing Pod list, because they need every slot they can to be creatures, basically, so they can Birthing Pod up, you know, answers to all different types of decks that you might see in this type of format.
That would be a lot of Thoughtseize. I thought he also had 3 at Replicase.
Well, you got the list in front of you. Why don't you let me know how many he's got?
You're right. He has 3 Thoughtseizes and 3 at Replicase. So then, I mean, the fact that Luis did not take this Anger of the Gods out of Andrew's hand leads me to believe that Luis either has another copy of Thoughtseize or a Sin Collector in hand.
Okay. We will find that out shortly as everybody's shuffling, presenting, and doing all that. We get a lot of that in Modern thanks to the fetch land mana bases that most decks run. And here's Tarmogoyf and got a lands in front of spells, potentially mirror match. Luis Scott Vargas has been trolling us by going back and forth. Sometimes the lands are in front, sometimes they're behind.
I don't think he's really too worried about that. I think he's more worried about just like playing good Magic.
Yeah, you would think that. But he switched mid-match earlier in the weekend.
Yeah, that's because he's just not thinking about it.
I doubt that. All right, so I think we're going to see Sin Collector. You predicted it a second ago, Jake, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it here.
Yeah, and I see one in his hand now.
Right now he's deciding what to get with his Verdant Catacombs here. And it's going to be a basic forest this time. And there's Sin Collector. Now, again, so far, no Birthing Pods or anything like that for Luis Scott Vargas. Nothing broken, just value creatures. And this really is the backbone of this deck, and it actually has been for a while. I think that this list just finally let go and said, you know what, we win almost all of our games from just casting, recurring, and playing great creatures. Let's just do that. Let's just not play, you know, Malira, which on its own is not a great creature, and Viscera Seer, which on its own is also not a great creature. They're not even really good creatures on their own.
Yeah.
They're just
not
like
playable.
Forget it all. Yeah. All right. And we do see Archangel of Thune, which is going to hit the bin off of that Thoughtseize, and he can't throw it in there fast enough. Yeah. Spike Feeder is left over. So he did actually have the combo in his hand, interestingly. Randy, we already have an update?
2 game ones for you.
Wow.
BBD gets an active Birthing Pod, takes his first game.
Okay.
And Scape Shift is what Scape Shift does. Jung Park up a game on Louis Kaplan.
Okay, thanks, Randy. We're going to be getting constant updates from Randy. We've got 6 win-in matches in total. We've got 4 of them in our feature match area, 2 in our normal seating area, and we're going to be trying to bring you as many updates as we can as we move towards our top 8 here. Here's Spike Feeder for Luis Scott Vargas, and on its own, kind of lame, right? I mean, Spike Feeder?
Yeah, I mean, it's a it's a Gray Ogre. It's a 2/2 for 3 mana,
Yeah.
and I mean you can remove one of those +1/+1 counters from it, and gain 2 life. Now, by itself, not exciting at all. However, that Archangel of Thune that Luis Scott Vargas has in his graveyard there, that Archangel of Thune, if that's in play at the same time as Spike Feeder, it produces infinite +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures besides Spike Feeder and gains you infinite life.
There you go. And here's Lightning Bolt, which is going to take down Spike Feeder. Luis is going to respond by gaining life. And Tarmogoyf's going to hit the red zone. So Luis Scott Vargas has a Birthing Pod, no cards in hand. He needs to start finding value creatures to start chaining together here. He doesn't have one this turn. And he just passes the turn back to his opponent. Luis is on 8. I'm assuming Tarmogoyf is somewhere in the 4 range, and this could be lethal. And it is. That is going to do it. Andrew Huska, in quick fashion, takes down Luis Scott Vargas in the first game. A few Thoughtseizes, a little bit of a shaky draw for Luis after the Thoughtseizes, and he just didn't have much gas at the end there.
Yeah, I think Luis mulligan there.
Does feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just didn't.
Yeah.
I should have counted the cards, but just from the feeling of the match was that he was on 6 cards there.
All right, my friend Doug Potter on Twitter says that that Andrew goes by Curly, which is either his actual nickname or an elaborate troll to get me to call him Curly on the air. Either way, I'm doing it. We're running it.
We're calling him Curly?
He says everyone calls him Curly. What? Rashad says he calls him Curly.
Pretty bad.
I mean, Andrew's a fine name.
Andrew is a fine name.
I guess Curly's a fine name too, though.
Than the current versions, but it's just a new bad thing. So you just have to learn a bunch of new stuff, but you're not getting any advancement out of it. I don't know. I feel like.
So.
Let's hear what Luis is talking about.
Something like a car, like making a car and then like taking away just an option.
Yeah.
Like maybe people just want to listen to radio, like something like that.
Yeah, they're not doing a lot of things great.
I really don't understand it considering this budget.
A little bit of the friendly banter that you'll get in between rounds. Sometimes that masks the tension, you know, like it's just easier to sort of chat with your opponent, even though really, you know, you're like mold of 5, mold of 5, mold of 5, mold of 5. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I'm always rooting for my opponent.
Come on, Jake.
Unless
You're one of the most competitive people I know.
That person. But no, but I want them to like draw well. I want to have a good match.
Even when you're playing for top 8?
I guess you're right. I guess that there have been moments where I've been like, oh gosh, I hope he mulligans.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything
you know?
wrong with feeling like that. I mean, I don't know.
When I start feeling like that, I find that like things go wrong for me though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like that every game I play, but
it
just gets so built up. Yeah, but it just gets no. I agree with that, and I think you shouldn't be actively rooting too hard. But I think it is also natural to feel that kind of sensation when you get to the point where you're just like, I'm so close, right? Like I have one more match to go. It doesn't take that much for me to go right. And plus, I mean, in Curly's case here, he's facing down Luis Scott Vargas. Like he's going to need some potentially some mulligans here just to try to even it up. I'm assuming. I mean, I've never played against Andrew, but Luis is a Hall of Famer. Like,
I mean, as Andrew though, you have to be reasonably happy to get this matchup toward the end. Like, I feel like I'd rather play against a matchup that I was somewhat happy with, even if it was Luis Scott Vargas playing it, than a matchup I was unhappy with against some random player.
Good guy, Jake. What's going on out there, Randy?
Matt McCullough up a game on Taylor Lane. And Vidyanto Wijaya takes game 1 from Nick Bonham. Vidi, by the way, is Nate Price's pick for the luckiest man in the room, so he's convinced Vidi's going to make the top 8. Vidi won that, by the way, Gavany Township out of the Birthing Pod deck, just swarm of giant monsters.
GP champion Vidyanto Wijaya, though he won in Legacy.
That's true.
One more interesting note for you, by the way. Nathan Holliday, while shuffling Kai Burnett's deck, noticed that some of the sleeves were not identical, pointed it out to the judge. Nobody thinks of any foul play, but they did ask Kai to go change his sleeves.
Okay.
So now Nathan is sitting patiently with his opening hand dealt out in front of him, and his opponent hasn't even come back to the table yet.
Oh,
they haven't even started game one.
Okay.
They will, of course, get a time extension, but yeah, Nathan wondering if, with this much pressure, did he really need to say something?
Yeah, maybe we'll get a chance to catch the end of that one if they're not even underway yet, which is a good news for us in the booth and you at home. Maybe more magic on camera. We all love that. Meanwhile, we're underway here in game 2. Luis Scott Vargas with Noble Hierarch, and that is a red mana source there from Andrew. Is there a lightning bolt in the near future?
I would assume so if that's going to play untapped.
Bzzz. Lightning bolt takes down Noble Hierarch. Pass a turn back. Let's see what Luis can find to fix this situation. He's going to crack his Verdant Catacombs. Maybe a Voice of Resurgence?
That would be pretty strong.
He's playing something. He just played that Godless Shrine untapped, so...
Already down to 14 here. Very painful mana basis.
No kidding. And it is Voice of Resurgence. All right. So Luis is on the board, and he's got a threat that's pretty tough to deal with on a one-for-one basis. Curly has a Tarmogoyf here. Oh, he's also got, though, a Thoughtseize, which reveals a pretty nice hand of double Birthing Pod. Actually, this hand isn't that great. He's with no more lands in hand for Luis. But anyway, double Birthing Pod, Shriekmaw, and Archangel of Thune. So not a ton of action here for Luis. He's at least one land drop away from being able to cast Birthing Pod, and he's going to take another 2 to do that. But then the chain starts going. Unfortunately for Andrew, since Luis does have 2 Birthing Pods, you know, he can't cut him off of that strategy. He's going to take Shriekmaw. He's going to protect his Tarmogoyf, his future Goyfs.
I like that.
Yeah, it's the only card that Luis can cast at the moment. Luis attacks. Is he going to miss a land drop again? He is. He'd at least find something he can cast with Spellskite, but Luis has had some pretty tough mana problems down the stretch here on day 2. And here's Tarmogoyf for Andrew. Pass a turn back, and there it is, a land, and it's a nice one too. Untapped, no pain, no nothing for us there. And he's going to get Birthing Pod online, take 2 damage to do it, and say go. So this actually turned out pretty reasonable for Luis with Spellskite on board. That's going to make it tougher for Andrew to interact with Birthing Pod and or Voice of Resurgence.
Definitely.
Now, if Andrew has a card like Anger of the Gods, he can take out the Voice and still leave the Spellskite behind, though. All right, this looks like Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay on his turn, so there's going to be no tokens, and he's going to aim it at the Voice of Resurgence. And Luis actually just lets that happen.
Yeah,
He's got a 2-drop he can shuffle away if he wants. He can protect from a card like Ancient Grudge here. Ooh, second Tarmogoyf, though, for Curly means that the clock has now become pretty darn quick. I'm assuming that's a 2-turn clock here. You know, keeping Spellskite out of the yard also, I believe, keeps the Tarmogoyf's 1 power lower, because I don't think there's an artifact up there yet.
No, there is not, but in the same sense, by getting rid of that Voice, he turns off a lot of the Birthing Pod opportunity that Luis Scott Vargas has.
Well, I mean, he can still just do the Skite, right?
Yeah, but if he sacrifices the Skite, then the Ghosts end up getting bigger, and
Gotcha.
then he also has 1 less guy on the board. Like, if he's able to sacrifice that Voice, then
he can keep the same number of creatures on. Gotcha. Yeah, so blowing up something there is going to be good for Andrew no matter what. And the question is, where does the chain go from here? Spellskite hits the bin, Goyfs get powered up. This is usually the time for a Kitchen Finks. But let's see what Luis Scott Vargas comes up with here. It is Kitchen Finks o'clock. And Luis just has to pass the turn back. He's got a 2/2 token and a 3/3 Kitchen Finks. Still a bit crimped on mana, though. Getting up to 3 was a huge jump for Luis with that forest.
Yeah, will Andrew just activate a Ravine and send in the team?
He's going to need another mana to do that.
I think he has one in hand. He also, though, has Batter Skull, I believe.
He does have Batter Skull in his hand. That's correct. So if he does have that 5th mana, he's got a choice of activating Ravine and battling or playing Batter Skull. Yeah, and you're right. He's got a Marsh Flats in his hand, so he can do either one of these that he wants. When you play Raging Ravine, one thing that you have to be careful of is playing around Lightning Bolt, because when the trigger's on the stack, it's just a 3/3, but Luis doesn't have those, so he can take a turn off of the Ravine here and not really view it as an opening and just resolve Batter Skull if that's what he'd rather do. Either way, he's going to be putting a lot of pressure on Luis over the course of the next 2 turns. This is looking pretty rough for LSV here. He's under massive pressure.
I mean, I don't know. He has the pot in play. He's going to be able to block this turn.
He can block one of them. He can block 2 if he really wants. I'm assuming that they're 5/5s at this point. He's at 10. This is getting kind of scary here.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in a safe spot, but
all right, so he's going to take 5. Again, that's my assumption, and to put him down to 5, and there's Batter Skull. Yeah. All right, well, 5's a nice life total to be in. Really? That's pretty awesome.
that is awesome.
When you play against a Pro Tour Hall of Famer like Luis Scott Vargas, he'll give you one of those pins, and Andrew decided to use it as his germ token. All right, Luis draws a forest for his turn here, but he's facing down a 5-power, 5-power, 4-power, and another 4-power potentially out of one of those Raging Ravines here with Luis at 5. He's got 1 creature on the battlefield. It is Kitchen Finks. He's going to sack that. That's going to come back. Get him back up to 7. And he's going to go find a 4-drop here. All right, it's Restoration Angel to reset the Finks and put him back up to 9. Nice. We've seen him do that a few times here, and that's strong. Now, the problem is that neither of his creatures really block anything that he needs to block super well here. All right, Luis does, though, have Archangel of Thune in his hand, which could drastically change things if he can get it online. But in the meantime, here come the clowns. 4, 4, 5, and 5, all hitting the red zone, and Luis has a lot of blocking to do. And that's 8. That puts Luis Scott Vargas down to 1 life here. He's going to jump back up to 3 from the Kitchen Finks, though. No Lightning Bolt from Andrew Huska, so he's just going to pass the turn back. And Luis has 1 window of opportunity here to not die. Is there anything that he can do?
Huh.
I mean, would Archangel of Thune even get it done here? No, right?
Factory set event. Your pairings for the next round are now up.
He has an active birthing pod, which is, you know, when a player has that, it usually feels like there's always some way to get out, but he is under immense pressure here.
I'm trying to think of Luis's options here.
You have an interesting face when you're thinking, Jake.
I mean, I just don't see any way that he can win this game at this point.
I can't think of it either. You know, this is very much a grindy deck, this Birthing Pod deck. It's not the one that just has the huge power combo. The only one that he has is that Birthing Pod, that Archangel of Thune combo, and he doesn't have either piece on the battlefield now. He does play Archangel here and just ships a turn back, but he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. I mean, if Andrew activates a Ravine and attacks, it's over.
And that's going to do it. And a big fist pump there from Andrew Huska. Easy there, Curly. I mean, I don't blame him. I'd be excited, too. Beating Luis Scott Vargas is no small feat in and of itself, and making the top 8 of the GP is a big deal. And he is in with Jund. Luis Scott Vargas, a gentleman as always. Yeah, he really is.
His opponent stands up, pumps his fist, and Luis smiles and laughs a little bit.
Yeah,
happy about it.
I'd probably laugh a little too, but
It's good.
I think that's
a good spirit to have.
Gentlemanly thing to do for sure. And you can see what a big deal it is to Andrew. He's put his hands on his head, and he is super stoked.